All right, guys. Jake Shannon here, number one podcast. Again, I think Joe Rogan's got me beat for a while, but that is really not what I'd love to be number one. I'm going to do everything I can. But really, this is about people who are number one in their field and have had massive success and are willing to share some tips, some tricks, share these things with you. That's very important to me. And I am super stoked because I have got one hell of a guest. Carlos Salguero is a super entrepreneur. This is a guy who is totally after my heart, way bigger and more successful than I've been. So I'm as excited as you guys to sit here and listen to what he has to share with you. So let me bring him in. Carlos, my friend, how are you?
Hello. Doing great, Jake. How are you? So excited
to
be here with you.
Yeah, dude, except we're both freezing our asses off here in Denver.
It's all good, man. It's all good. I have my bog jacket on, so I'm nice and warm. I'm toasty.
So, Carlos, I got to tell people what a baller you are, because you're a quiet guy and you're kind of, a stoic guy. And I just got to say, I saw you. I don't know if that was the first real estate summit. Was that? Anyway, at the one last summer. And, I'm in the room. I'd already been to I think they booked 3 events back to back. So I'm sitting there in all these, and this was the last of the last. And I'm sitting there and I'm just so blown away, super excited to be part of the 10X movement and the community and wanting to get involved. And so here we are at the real estate summit. And this is something for those of you that maybe are new to Grant Cardone. It's really how he made his vast wealth. He's super successful as a businessman, but the guy's crazy wealthy, and a lot of it was through real estate. So he's crazy passionate. Anyway, we're there, and freaking Carlos, like a player, stands up and drops $1 million investment in Cardone Capital right there. It was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. And then he happened to mention he was from Denver. I was like, oh shit, I'm going to go bug this guy. And he was very nice. I came up, I'm like, dude, I got to get your number and all this. So Carlos, first of all, dude, how do you just drop $1 million bones like that? That was so cool, man. That's my dream now.
Look, I just a little background to that. I had sold a company in 2020. I built a nutrition company in 18 months to 8 figures. I have been in the e-commerce space for a good 17 years now, 20 years if I count the years that I was out of my one-bedroom apartment back in San Jose, California. So I've been in e-commerce for a long time. So I've learned along the way, and just by trial by fire, right? Because back in those days, there was no mentorship, there was no YouTube, there was nobody that I could call and find knowledge from or extract information, no podcasts. So I had to do it on my own. So over that journey, I built a massive e-commerce business, got a lot of experience in e-commerce, logistics, distribution, and everything related to that. And I started a nutrition brand in 2018. And in about 18 months, launching on Amazon, we were able to take it to 8 figures. Then we got a private equity group that wanted to buy us out. And since we already had the playbook, we said, okay, let's go sell this, create some liquidity for ourselves, and then let's go do it again. So one thing I really didn't know is up to that point, I had been making money, but I didn't have a liquidity event that was as big as this. So then you have all this cash sitting in the bank.
What do you do with it?
And you start getting worried, right? This cash is doing nothing. Inflation's going through the roof. Money's losing value by the minute here. You got to find a solution. So I knew in my gut that real estate was the answer. And I had already been buying property before the Grant Cardone event, the real estate summit. But I was thinking way too small. I was buying small duplexes and fourplexes, and I was just completely shortchanging myself. Why? Because I didn't have the confidence. And you know this, when you have the confidence and the knowledge to go execute at a high level, you do so at massive levels of action, which allows you to go have massive results. So by the time that I got to that summit, one thing that I did not know, and I already felt it in my gut, is you got to start thinking bigger. So for 3 days, Grant basically explained to us how multifamily real estate really helps you preserve your wealth, get amazing tax deductions, get cash flow every month, and also compound your money over time, because you're able to ride in a vehicle that continuously rises in value because of the appreciation of the rents. And rents have never gone back in this country. That's one thing that you can guarantee, know that is going to continue to rise. If you and I live in Denver, just think about the transformation Denver has had downtown and the surrounding areas. It's been nothing but growth, nothing but people coming to the state and driving those rents up. So when Grant showed his opportunity to invest in a premium property in Houston, the location's incredible, the asset is unbelievable, the rents are under market. I was like, I found a home for my money, right?
Yeah. I'm sure it was a huge relief.
Oh yeah. So it's like a lot of folks say, "Whoa, what are you doing?" I'm like, "Man, I am preserving my wealth in my kids' inheritance and the generations after that, because there's no way to lose with an asset like that."
Well, so Carlos, like, man, I really like your story is just so cool. So you were born in freaking Ecuador.
Yes.
So where the hell? So did you end up in California first, or
no? I'll tell you a little bit of the background. I was born and raised in Ecuador. Both my parents were born in Ecuador. My mom went to a German school as a kid, so she's trilingual. She speaks Spanish, English, and German. My dad was born in a very small town in Ecuador, maybe 5,000, 10,000 people in the town, raised by his sister. Mom died, dad was never around, and he basically took himself out of poverty and moved himself to the city, lived in with some family there, and barely graduated from high school, taught himself English, became a salesman for NCR, the typewriter company that back in the day was selling typewriters and all this supplies for typewriters. So learn how to sell, and at 40 started a printing company with a partner, bought a machine, and basically after that he started actually learning how to be in business for himself at 40 years old, and built a very respectable business in the printing business. Bought his partner a year later, then built real estate to house his printing company. And so all the while, we, the kids, are watching this, right? He's not like sitting us down and saying, "Hey, son, this is how you do this is how you do that." No, man, we're just absorbing, watching it all unfold at the office every evening after school, going on errands with him to visit clients, going to travel the world, because he then started buying secondhand machinery in Germany, bringing it to Ecuador, refurbishing and flipping it for a profit. So all this stuff, right? So it was like business school before business school in a way.
This is in your blood, man. This is like in your blood.
100%. I mean, my brother sold chewing gum in school before he could probably even read and write. Right?
That's awesome.
I was always selling something. And by the time that I was in my teens, I knew that I wanted to study business, and I knew that I wanted to come to the United States, because one very wise thing that my parents did is they put us in a private American school in Ecuador, which was a very costly sacrifice for them, right? The tuition back in those days for each one of us was over $1,000 a kid, right? Which, for them, it was okay.
A huge portion of their income, I'm
probably
sure.
bigger than their mortgage. Just
yeah.
Well, just think about that, right? Would you pay for your kid to go to a private school where he's going to learn a second language and be taught by American teachers, and for that payment to be higher than your mortgage. Most people won't do that. So all credit to my parents that were willing to make the sacrifice for us. So by the time that we graduated from that school, I was already lined up to go to the States to come to university here. So at 17 years old, I left my home country and I knew nobody in the States. I had no friends, no family, and basically came and enrolled in a school here in Colorado, in Pueblo, Colorado, of all places.
Oh, wow.
Pueblo, Colorado. And
Yeah,
I lived there for 5 years, got my undergrad in business, got my master's in engineering. And then I was faced with a decision of, I called my dad back because the plan was always, hey, son, go to the States, get your education out of the way, and then come and run my business. So I was ready, call my dad and say, hey, Dad, I'm ready to go run the biz. And he's like, oh, son, you know what? I'm selling the machines. I just want to, get rid of this business, go live in my farm, and I'll keep the real estate and live off of the real estate. So obviously I was like, oh man, that sucks, man. But in his wisdom, it was the best thing for me because it forced me to now find an opportunity here. Because he said, just stay there, find a job, start a business, do whatever you want to do, and I'll support you. And thankfully by then, I was self-sufficient. My goal was always for me to never depend on my parents after my 20th birthday, right? I don't know where I got that from, but I was like, after my 20th birthday, I don't ever want to take a penny from my parents anymore. I actually want to give back because of all the stuff that they've given me. And after that, my dad never had to buy a meal when we were together. My mom has never had to buy a meal when we were together. I mean, it's like, you know what I mean? I made that commitment to myself, not to anybody else, to myself. And I think one lesson I can teach people is you got to make some commitments and contracts with yourself that are unbreakable, that you will not compromise with. Because the easiest thing to do for folks is to lie to themselves. So if you make a commitment with yourself about something that you believe in, be extremely strict about not going back on your own word to yourself.
I agree. That's the source of all self-esteem, right? Like, do you hold anybody in high esteem that lies to you or bullshits you or anything? Why is it different when you do it with yourself? It's worse, right? Because people can lie to their parents, people can lie to their spouses, but you can't lie to yourself ever. Dude, 100%. I'm so on that page. So, okay. Now this is fascinating to me because, dude, this is like in your blood and it's like kind of even cosmic, right? Because so your dad is basically, now this is really, your dad was doing his hustle before the internet and before really even like circuitry was the big thing, typewriters, right?
Anything. Yeah.
But I'm reading about you and you had this your eBay store, the Ecommerce was you were sourcing electronics and reselling that.
So I'll tell you how that unfolded. So my dad tells me, no, son, stay in the States. So I'm like, shoot, man, I got to scramble now for income, right? What do? I need a job. So I start applying for engineering jobs because that was the background that's what my degree said, right?
Yeah.
You're a master's in engineering, right? So, okay, let's go. So I start knocking on doors basically. And I end up in San Jose, California, knocking at HP's door, Hewlett Packard.
Yeah.
And at that time, it was the early 2000s, and it was the dot-com bubble going on. Basically, all these companies in Silicon Valley hiring people left and right, inflated everything. Old, experienced engineers were going to startups with crazy stock options and incentives. So HP was losing engineers by the throws. And
I was in San Francisco at the exact same time.
Were you? Wow.
Yeah, and I was in grad school for financial engineering. I was in San Francisco, though, not San Jose. So dude, when you're saying it's like the height of the dot-com bubble, and that you were in the middle of the dot-com bubble,
Yep.
And it was like mad. I mean, it was the craziest fucking thing.
Yes.
To be in the middle of that, but it was a great place for opportunity, especially getting jobs, right? Because like you said, it was in such huge demand.
But it didn't come easy though, because I go and I'm like, hey, I just graduated, and it's like, oh, no, we're not hiring people without experience. Great that you have a degree, but you haven't had any jobs in engineering. So I'm like, shoot, man, that's not good. I'm like, can I work here anyways? Do you need an intern? And what do you need? So he's like, well, we do have some internships available, but just know that they're unpaid. I'm like, when do I start? So I worked at HP for 6 months unpaid, which later on turned into 9 months unpaid.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I had to work full time. I was the first one in, last one out. And I was moonlighting for income to pay my very expensive San Jose studio that back in those days,
I feel you, dude.
Back in those days, it was $1,900 a month
for a studio.
For a studio apartment.
I know, dude.
Right?
I paid $2,000 in Berkeley for the same deal. It was shit. It was like one room.
Yes, one room. So I'm like, okay.
Huh.
So anyways, 9 months later, they're like, okay, you're hired, junior engineer. Perfect, man.
Nice.
Money coming in. Thank God. So I still, was 10xing. I didn't know the term 10x, man, but I was 10xing it. And then just a few months later, it implodes, right? The dot-com bubble bursts and everybody is scared. All the engineers that left start wanting to come back, and he froze the hiring. Nobody's coming in, but all these vacancies were available. So because I was doing a great job, I started climbing. So within 3 to 5 years that I was there, I became junior engineer, mid-level, senior, and then I became the engineering manager for North America in my 20s.
Wow.
And my salary never caught up to me, because, in corporate America, they give you the title and they say, yeah, here's your title so you can work more and have more responsibility. And then your salary lags behind 6 to 9 months, right? So I was in the midst of this, and great experience, amazing experience. I traveled the world with them. I pretty much went to every continent to go design manufacturing facilities for HP and run the teams. But I was still not fulfilled. I was not content.
Yeah, you're an entrepreneur in your heart.
Yeah. I had that bug, man, and that bug would not let me be. So I kept looking for an opportunity, and I started dabbling in at very late at night with the internet and with e-commerce. And I started noticing that Hewlett Packard was very wasteful. And they had all these supplies, all these printing supplies that they were ordering from China, that if anything was wrong, like a label was wrong, or the box was a little crooked or beat or busted, blah, 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 they would throw them away in the dumpster.
Oh, dude.
And I was like, oh, man, this is stuff that I can buy and flip.
Yeah.
So I start buying and flipping toner cartridges, accessories, fusers, and you name it, right?
Yeah.
And then an opportunity comes around where a whole truckload of toner cartridges was mislabeled. And I was like, what are you guys going to do with this? It's like, oh, we're just going to, it was in Mexico, right? At our Mexico facility. We're just going to dump it in the landfill. I'm like, for real? Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because it's too expensive to rework it. We'd rather dump it and order new. The manufacturer, anyways, is going to replace it at no cost. So, boom. Back in those days, no environmental anything, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, man, would you sell it to me? I was like, what do you want this for? It's like, would you sell it to me? And they're like, yeah, sure. So I paid like nothing, right? I think it was $4,000 to $5,000 for a truckload of toner cartridges that were selling for $7,000 to $1,000 on eBay, and retail price was like $2,500. So I take him from Mexico to California, and I stuffed my by then I had a 1-bedroom apartment, right? I upgraded. And then I and then I rented a few storage units, and I just loaded them up, and I started posting on eBay, man, and the sales start coming in like a flood because I was selling amazing high quality goods, brand new, for a fraction of the cost. In fact, I think I sold them too cheap, but the cash flow, right? So I like that proved the concept for me. The eBay was a real thing. E-commerce was a real thing. It was enough for me to say, okay, I got a future in this. And I was making so much money at night that my job at HP started being in the way, right? So 6 months later, I believe it was, I walk into my manager's office, and I still remember his name, and Hormuz Gorbanian. Okay, I'll never forget that name. I'm like, hey, Hormuz, here's my resignation, man. Thanks so much for everything you've done. Here's my 2 weeks, right? I appreciate everything. He was like shocked, right? Because I was running 80 engineers.
Yeah.
Right.
He's like, how are you gonna do better than this?
Yeah. So it's like, where are you going? I'm like, I started a business on the side. What? Wow. Yeah. What are you doing? Selling stuff online? No way. And he was like completely in shock. He said, that's never gonna last. E-commerce is a fad. It's gonna go away in a year or two. Blah 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 blah. I'm like, I'll be back in a year or two then.
See ya. I'm out the door, man.
Yeah. And I was like, that's okay,
awesome.
So he's
what
like,
I love about that, I'm sorry to interrupt, but what
no.
I love is, I mean, how many people right now are working a job because that's what we're kind of told to do, and especially like you or like myself, we're invested all the way up to the grad school level. It's like, dude, I kind of got to go work a job. It's like it's just beat into you. But yeah. What I love is that you still had your eyes open for these opportunities, and man, that is so what I'm curious about, how in the hell did you keep that supply chain open after you left HP to keep getting the cheap parts to flip?
So I realized that all of the big major companies were doing very similar things, being very wasteful back then. So I basically started building relationships with suppliers that either had connections at HP, Logitech, Microsoft, in all these big names that had product that was either overstock, liquidation, or even just returns. And I started buying truckloads, pallets, auctions, stuff like that, and started flipping, right? And that basically became my business for the first 10 years of the business career online. And it started growing where I first was a storage unit. Then I moved back to Colorado. So then it didn't make sense for me to stay in California anymore because of the costs, right? The costs were astronomical.
That's why I moved too. It's like, and it's impossible to be a small business owner there almost.
Yeah. So I moved back. My mom was living in Denver at the time. And I moved back with my mom. I was single still. I moved back with my mom. I was renting one of her bedrooms, and I was renting their garage for my junk, right?
Yeah.
For my inventory. So I'm like hustling. And I was like, Mom, do you want a job? And she's like, I would love to. So she became my first employee. Then my second employee became her husband. And then I met my wife at church. And then she became my third employee. Right.
Wow.
So we built it so big that I forced my mom to buy a bigger house, which was one of the best things that she did, so that we could have a 3-car garage instead of a 2-car garage. And then we just outgrew the thing, right? Because I remember those days. This is funny. We had like tractor trailers pulling into to the cul-de-sac, right?
And we were like, what the hell are you doing, man?
Bro, we had a neighbor. We had a nasty neighbor that would call the police every time we got a pallet delivery, right? He was just nasty.
The hell?
And he would call the police, and of course the police will come and say, hey, what's going on? And he would come out, talk to the police for 30 minutes, and telling them, hey, this guy is like calling they're running a business out of their house as if that is something illegal,
Yeah,
right?
right. Like the guy's totally an idiot.
Yeah. I'm like, they're running a business out of their house and they're getting all these pallets. You better check on them. So the cops will come over to us and basically tell us, hey, look, man, I'm sorry. I know you guys are doing nothing wrong. We just have to come to the calls. So,
right.
if you can, can you just have these companies to send it to you in a smaller truck, not in a tractor trailer, right? So that was hilarious. But those are the growing pains of a small business, because we were doing all with our own cash. I never got a loan along the way.
I fucking love that.
I wish I would have learned leverage back then, right? But
yeah,
it was all bootstrapping. And finally we leased a warehouse. And in that warehouse, we grew the business. And then we learned about automation, about systems, about marketing, about stuff like that, again, by making a ton of mistakes, man, by losing a lot of money, by buying stuff that I couldn't sell and I had to throw away or gift away. So it was never like a smooth ride. This is another cool story along the way. We were selling maybe a couple, 300 orders a day back in those days. And then our first year in the big warehouse, we come to the office on Black Friday and open the system. And instead of our usual 300 orders, we had over 3,000 orders waiting to be shipped.
Whoa, 10x for real.
10x for real. And we had one employee plus the two of us, my wife and I. My mom was still working with us, I believe, but it was like very, very small team.
How did you scale? I mean, were you just stuffing envelopes all freaking like packaging and stuff?
Man, the stacks of labels literally were like this big. And it's not like it stopped. It continued. So it's like,
oh, wow.
They kept coming in. And back then there was no automation, no software, right? We were copying and pasting from the one system to the other system. So we called family and friends, hey guys, come help out. They would come for an hour, get tired, and leave. Right? So, anyways, we slept in the office for like 4 days with our son on the floor, right? Sleeping on the floor. But we were committed to this thing, man.
Dude, this is the American fucking story, man. This is like, oh my God, Carlos. I didn't know half this shit. Dude, this is awesome. Like, what I love is it's because, to me, I'm such a big believer in what you just said, and that's bootstrapping, man. So much of this, and this is one thing that I think Grant does a great job at, like, communicating, is that so much of this is just mindset and putting yourself into a position where you can't back out, and you've got to solve the problem.
Yep.
And dude, I just am feeling your story where you're like stacked up and you're in these like little situations because you're just so successful, it's bursting at the seams. And the other thing is I really feel all this about like not having mentors, how fucking hard it is to succeed through trial and error.
Yep.
That's just sheer grit, dude. That's guts. You got fucking guts.
No, and trust me, I mean, I have so many stories about that journey, because there was days that were like, shit, are we going to make it until next month? Are we going to cover payroll next month?
I understand.
Are we going to be, look, for the longest time, we didn't pay ourselves. We covered our bills.
Yeah.
And that was it. But the business was it. The business was our life. Every penny that we made that we didn't spend on food or a roof or a vehicle went back into the business.
So now I think, I can't remember if this was our conversation or I overheard you talking on Clubhouse. I cannot remember. So guys, also, he's got a great Clubhouse. I'm going to give out all your info. Obviously, yeah, you put your Instagram there.
Yeah, you can find me on Insta with this handle, on Clubhouse with this handle, every single one of my platforms. Except for Facebook, of course, my name is there, but that's my handle for everything.
So I think you were like, and I don't know, man, like, I'm guessing that this was you through osmosis, through absorbing your dad's experience too. Like, didn't you say early on you bought a warehouse?
So that wasn't early on. That was already 9 years ago. So
Okay.
9 years ago, we already had been renting a warehouse for what I want to say, 9 years or so, right?
Yeah.
We had been renting, and we just got tired of every time we wanted to expand, either with the same landlord or somebody else. It was these leases, man, that had all these expenses on them and renewals of 5 years, no flexibility, nothing. And I was like, started realizing, man, one of the best moves that my dad made was he owned his real estate.
Right.
So I started thinking back to that. I was like, man, I need to buy my warehouse. I need to do it. So I started looking for my warehouse. And back in those days, there was not a whole lot of inventory either, but I was able to find a few opportunities, and I still had to fight for that because
now wait a minute. Was this, when you were looking for the warehouse, was this prior to the recreational legalization here? Because I know warehouse space went nuts once that happened.
Yeah, that was 2012.
Oh, dude, so you were like 4 years ahead of it.
2011, 2012. That's when I started looking. I had been already looking since 2010, but 2011, it was when I got serious about it, and I said, okay, I need to buy it. Because you know what I was thinking, which a lot of people make a mistake with, and that was my mistake too early on. I had these 5-year chunks of leases, right? I had a commercial lease for 5 years, and I would like take myself out of the game thinking I gotta wait 5 years to start even looking, which that was a mistake. So halfway into the second term, I'm like, I'm not gonna wait anymore. I need a warehouse now because I'm busting at the seams at this small one. I'm gonna go look. So I started looking, and then I find 2-3 places, and I ended up getting the ugliest one, the dirtiest one, the one that needed the most work because I couldn't afford anything else, even though everybody else wanted to sell me the beautiful buildings, right? And in hindsight, it was the best decision I made because I got an SBA loan. First time I got a loan for my business. I got an SBA loan for the building, and I was able to buy a beautiful 44,000 square feet warehouse with 5 acres of land attached to it.
Wow.
So it's total 50,000 square feet of space, including the offices, and the 4 acres right on Federal Boulevard, which, it's like 40,000 cars a day.
Yeah, it's a major thoroughfare. It's like Federal, Sheridan, Wadsworth, like boom, like that, and Kipling, like those are the 4.
Yeah. And I was like, back in those days, I was like, number one, I still had 2 years left in my lease. Okay. And I was like, whoa, I'm going from a 5,000 square feet to a 50,000 square feet.
Wow.
And am I ever going to feel this thing, man? Am I
again 10x?
Yeah. Am I going to pay the mortgage, man? So I was like, okay, let's go. My wife, obviously terrified, right?
Yeah, that's a big step, dude. But
are you sure what you're doing? I was like, yeah, baby, I'm sure. Right? By then I had earned her confidence that I was able to produce, right? And man, one thing is like, if I'm accountable to myself, I'm like, I never want that woman to ever have a worry in her life, right?
Yeah.
So it was like, look, I will chop my arm off if I need to, but I will not disappoint my wife. That was my thought process. So anyways, get this warehouse, and I still had 2 years lease. And I'll tell you this story because you got to get creative, guys. One thing that I recommend is like, don't ever get stuck in a mindset of a problem. And I live by this motto. This is my philosophy. There are no problems, just opportunities. Every challenge, every struggle, every obstacle is an opportunity for you to create a solution for it. There's nothing really that is unsolvable. So there are no problems, only opportunities. So
and it's all mind, it's mental. It's coming up, being creative, and busting your ass.
Yes, it's a choice. So 2-year lease, I start talking around to my neighbors in that complex, right? And it's like, hey guys, you want a sublease from me? And by the way, it was not allowed in my lease to sublease, right? So I'm like, one of the neighbors says, yeah, man, I need more space, but I don't want to renew with these guys, right? So I'm like, cool. Here's the deal. Exactly what you're paying right now. We'll do a contract within ourselves. I'll keep sending the checks every month as if nothing happened. So on a couple weekends, I moved to the big warehouse and I moved in my neighbor into the
Dude, I love it, man.
So anyways, halfway 6 months into it, we get caught by the landlord, man.
Oh shit.
And he's like, I mean, they're super serious, right? And he calls me and is like, bro, when do you get my checks? On the 1st of every month?
Yeah, I'm paying.
What's the problem? Right? You're getting paid. He's like, well, you know, the optics of this whole thing, and you gotta charge at least market rent for this unit, because otherwise we can't advertise the rest of the complex. I mean, he gave me the most political BS answer that you would ever hear, right? I said, cool. I got a solution for that. So I went to my tenant, my neighbor, and he's like, bro, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna raise your rent to market rent. And since you already have a year and a half left, I'm going to write you a check for the difference right now.
You just solved the problem, dude.
Yeah. I'm going to write you a check for the difference right now. And you just pay me the higher amount every month so that I can show Mr. Corporate Landlord that everything's fine. So it's like, cool. So that's what we did for the last year and a half. I was happy. He was happy. Landlord was happy, and I was able to move into my building, which, by the way, now has appreciated 9 times the price I paid back in those days.
Dude, that is amazing. And so I mean, you're blowing up. You know, you figured out this really great arbitrage opportunity, honestly, right? Where it's like you're getting something cheap, and you found a buyer, and it's all good. You're blowing up, you're buying, now you're getting into you're making some big real estate plays, which is super cool. And you really are bootstrapping this, which is so neat. Like, when did you decide to start like branching out, right? Because like you had this electronics thing, right? Like that's your baby. That was the first thing. But then how did you start going into the supplements or the fitness thing? And then how did you start branching out and scaling to, you know, because I don't think a lot of people understand the struggle of scaling up and juggling multiple, you know, keeping all the plates spinning when you really have these complicated processes going.
Yeah. So one thing I had to learn early on is I had to learn how to delegate things and not be a control freak. Because I think that's where a lot of small business owners get stuck, is they have this thought of, if I don't do it myself, nobody's going to be able to do it like I do it.
Yep.
And that's a limiting thought process.
Dude, I can't tell you how many of my clients have that issue.
Right?
Yep.
Which it prevents them from growth. It truly does. And they're always scared because they're scared of someone messing up. So I had to give up the fact that, look, if I wanted to grow, I absolutely needed, and my business needed to have me as the strategist of the business, as the one really thinking long-term and not working in the business every day, packing orders, shipping boxes, doing the forklift, doing the stuff like that. It needed me on the marketing and sales,
thinking,
and then doing deals, thinking, right? So when I understood that, I started finding the right people for the right places. And I was not good in the beginning, but I didn't give up, because a lot of people hire someone, it doesn't go well, and then they say, oh, I had a bad experience. I have one bad experience, and that rules the rest of their life, sadly, right? So you also have to understand, one bad experience does not have to rule the rest of your life. you have to look inwards and also take ownership of that. And that's part of you owning that maybe, just maybe, you didn't know how to hire people. Maybe you didn't know how to interview right. Maybe you didn't know how to spot the right folks.
But that it's a solvable problem that you can learn.
100%. Exactly. And then you start saying, shoot, yeah, I stink in this area. Let me go learn. And let me also get some help at it. So that's how I scaled, right? I started building the team. I started building the systems. I started understanding that. And then I was able to grow my e-commerce business, my logistics business. Along the way came the fact that I started becoming part of masterminds and leadership groups, where that completely transformed also my business, because for the first time I had access to other people that were just as ambitious and as hardworking as me, that I could tap into and ask questions and say, hey, Jake, man, how do you handle this problem? Or I'm sure you've run into it. What do you think?
That's the hardest thing, dude, is almost the loneliness before you tap into that and you're doing all this shit. And you're like, dude, there ain't no playbook, but there kind of is. The playbook's in the head of these other successful people. That's, you know.
Oh, so true, man. So you start grabbing information, and then also the networking and the partnerships that evolve from those groups is invaluable. So how do I end up building a 8-figure brand in the supplement space? I'll tell you two things that came out of the masterminds right away. Is number one, people started finding out that I had a warehouse. And that was maybe 9 years ago when I started going to masterminds, right after I bought the warehouse. And they're like, oh, I hear you have a warehouse. I don't want to buy a warehouse. I don't want to hire people. I don't want to handle any of that stuff. Would you do it for me? And the first guy that asked me that, I was like, sure, I'll do it for you. How much is it? And I'm like, let me get back to you in 24 hours.
Yeah, I feel you, because you don't know what to charge them.
Exactly. I didn't know the prices, man. I was like, whoo. So I looked it up. I looked at fulfillment centers and 3PL companies, and I got their price lists. I'm like, okay. I delivered a price list to my soon-to-be client 24 hours later. And he's like, cool, let's do it. I have 5 containers coming into Long Beach. They're coming inbound to your warehouse. I'm like, wow. I thought he was going to send a pallet, right? He sends 5 containers. So that was the start of the 3PL business that now is a multi-millionaire business that we have, because I was willing to say yes. And I was willing.
And because you had gone to these masterminds.
Exactly right.
With other people who had these bigger orders. I mean, really, right? Like,
yep.
Dude,
exactly
this
right.
is like so fucking fascinating. Now
we have hundreds. Now we have hundreds of clients, right? Now we have hundreds of clients that sell on the internet, that warehouse, fulfill, and have their inventory with us. So that was one thing. The second thing that came out of the masterminds is the networking. People started realizing that I had access to a lot of other e-commerce players. And I became the guy that everybody called when they needed help with Amazon or with eBay and stuff like that. So I was like, always giving value, right? It was like, I was never charging for consulting time or anything like that. Always giving value. So then one guy calls me and says, hey, I want to sell my brand. Would you help me sell my brand? I'm like, yeah, man, of course. Let me make a couple phone calls. And sure enough, I made a couple phone calls to guys that I knew were looking to buy brands. And I helped him sell his brand. And it was a high 7-figure exit. So I made $250,000 commission out of 2 phone calls.
Wow.
Right? And that money I rolled into starting a brand with him.
I see.
And that's the brand that went 8 figures in 18 months.
And that's the supplement and the health brand?
That's the supplement brand. Exactly.
Wow.
But you see how one thing leads to another and another and another. Did I plan any of this? No, man. None of it was planned. But I was willing to continue on the path and navigate and go where I felt there was the most opportunity. And that's what you eventually have to trust on, is that as you get experience and you're willing to go where the opportunity is at, where the right players are at, get in the right rooms, and really be confident and have a little faith that things are going to go great.
Yeah.
You're going to start getting lucky, right? And you're going to start finding the perfect opportunities, and you'll be ready to take on them. So that's what happened with that brand. Still own the 3PL business. I have 2 new brands that I'm building right now in the supplement space. I have now an apparel brand, which I'm wearing right now, Vogue, with a
Vogue, yeah.
Right. A partner of mine who's a former U.S. Marine, incredible human, David Wood. Find him on Instagram. That brand's also going to go nuclear. And we're building the supplement space. I have a CBD business as well that is exploding. We have 3,000 acres in Oregon of hemp grow. We have 160,000 square feet lab in Oregon that is extracting the CBD from our hemp. And also we have huge goals for that. That company will probably go public in the next 2 to 3 years.
Wow.
Putting me probably in the high in the 9-figure club, and eventually I'll be in the 10-figure club. Right?
Wow. Yeah.
It's unavoidable. And of course, you know about my real estate journey so far. Again, out of the desire of not letting my cash rot in my bank account,
right?
I traveled and I ended up at a real estate summit with Grant Cardone, which, by the way, he is the person that I follow for real estate, and he's my compass. And when he said from stage during the summit, stop thinking so small, go big or go bigger. A week and a half after I came back from that summit, I was shopping for deals, and I identified the deal that I'm about to close in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, $20 million property that, again, will create generational wealth for myself and for 30 or so other investors that are coming along in that deal, right? So how did I end up doing that? Somebody told me that I needed to do certain things, and I was willing to be a student. And I just basically said, okay, let's go do it. And I've learned so much during this process of real estate investing. And now we're going to go get $1 billion under ownership in the next 5 to 7 years. And now I have a group of businessmen that are aligned with this vision and that are super excited to go do it together. Because you know it. And you just said, man, it's lonely at the top, man. So if anything, go hang out with folks that are on the same wavelength as you.
Or don't be afraid to be the dumbest guy in the room. That was 100%. The thing that took me a long time. I just couldn't get over my own ego. Because, you know, I saw this, like, so at the marketerbros.com website, the bio that I was reading on you, you know, you said something that really, I mean, there's so much of your story that really, I mean, you're such a player on a bigger level than me, which is like a huge inspiration. And I really love that. But there's all these other parts of your story too that really resonate with my own experience. You know, I've been an entrepreneur for through 3 different financial crises now, and each time I've come out stronger. But you know, you mentioned like how you felt like it was all bullshit, like the school process in a way. You know, like that you had this engineering thing and you have this bachelor's and all that. But I just listened to the fact that, dude, you probably left in the dust all those people in HP in terms of knowledge, because man, you just threw yourself in the jungle, man, like naked and afraid. You just got dropped in and had to make the best of it, and man, you just killed it.
And you know, I truly have to give the proper credit to, during the time that I was at HP and even after, one thing that I did is, because I was looking for opportunity, I ended up actually becoming a distributor for a network marketing company, right? Because I wanted to learn other streams of income.
Yes.
And one thing that the network marketing company did for me, which I'm forever grateful, is they told me, you need to read 3 books a month, and you need to listen to 1 tape every single day, 1 cassette tape, right?
Yep.
So I faithfully read 3 books a month on leadership, on people skills, on everything under the sun, self-development. And I listen to one self-help audio every single day for the longest time, still today, man. It's like when I don't read or when I don't listen to something, I feel like I miss my coffee in the morning, right?
Yeah.
It's that level of habit at the now. So that basically continued to shape my mind to be able to take on the bigger challenges along the way. And of course, you know, I that opportunity, I never really pursued it hard because my e-commerce business started
Blowing up.
blowing up and I needed to focus. But I'm always thankful to the things that I caught along the way that will help me. And just take what you need, man. You know what I mean? Don't think it's like, no, I'm not going to do that, and exclude yourself from something that maybe you can take what you need, and be okay with knowing that, like you said, don't be the smartest person in the room. Be open-minded. Be a student, right? I'm forever a student for the rest of my life because you don't know what you don't know.
Dude, I'm so glad you said that actually about network marketing because, man, I don't know what happened, but it got, people crap on it so much. And when I'm talking to somebody and they're like, "Oh, dude, I want to be an entrepreneur," and I'm like, "Yeah, do you?" Like, we'll see. I'm like, dude, the easiest thing to do is go get into network marketing because you bear almost zero cost. You just get to make the money. It's like buying into a franchise for cheap. Like, you should just double down on that. And, like Grant sells Kangen. I sell Kangen. I think that's a great thing. I sell prepaid legal. I don't need to. I just think they're great products. And I think they're great ways for people to start getting in to the mindset of like, man, there's no limit on how much money I can make.
100%. The education is priceless, right? Because one big mistake that I think folks make, and I'm glad I didn't end up in doing that, is they think that once they get a degree, they're done. They're done. They're done learning, right? They know it all. They've seen it all, right? It's like the old saying that I've seen that, done that. Every time I hear that, I cringe, man, because it tells you that person now has completely locked themselves in a state of mind that nothing else can penetrate their cerebral cortex to teach them something new that they might be unaware of. And that hurts people to no end because they stop learning. They stop evolving. They stop developing. They stop creating. And creativity comes with learning. You are unable to create if you're not learning something. We've been equipped with the best computer, and we are really limiting the learning and input that we give it, right? It's food, it's fuel. So, that's one of the beautiful things. So that's really what has helped me along the way, continue to do multiple things, continue to not lock myself in one industry, but be willing to learn the next, right? Because I had no clue about nutrition or how to develop a supplement brand. I mean, zero knowledge, not even 4 or 5 years ago. But I was willing to learn and be a complete newbie for a minute or two while I was learning. So be okay with putting your ego aside, asking a lot of dumb questions,
Yeah.
right? Asking a lot of beginner questions, because none of us know everything. So you be willing to learn from somebody that has gone before, that has traveled before, that has failed before, so that you don't have to make those same failures. And be okay with it. Because look, I will never go again without a mentor. I will never go again without a person that I can bounce off some ideas with. And now my way of giving back is to help other people with mentorship, with leadership, with giving this information. And I congratulate you for doing what you're doing, because the fact that you are taking your time, energy, and effort to put together a podcast where you interview people that have achieved success means that you care about other people learning, not making the same mistakes, and maybe grabbing one thing out of this one podcast that can change their lives forever. One thing we say can course correct somebody that maybe was continued to be average or mediocre or just complacent, and kind of kick into high gear and say, man, I didn't know that. I'm going to go now and apply this to my life. And not only their life will be affected, the whole generational history of their family will change trajectory. How crazy is that? When I think about that, man, I get so excited because I'm like, man, even if I help one other human being, then all this is worth it.
Yeah, I love it, dude. And I love you. I mean, dude, everything that you're saying is fucking brilliant. Your life is so cool. Like, seriously, because like I'm so digging, like, also, you know, because I'm like a fitness nerd. I love how serious you are about fitness. I love how serious you are about family. And you know, like really, you totally get what I'm doing with the podcast. I did this similar kind of thing in this very small niche, and I grew it up into this pretty big thing. Just in wrestling, I did the same thing. I went and I tried to find the very, 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 very best guys, and they were like you. They want to give. They just don't want any bullshit. They don't want any posturing. They want to share and they want to help. And so I know that I know how valuable your time is. So I really appreciate you spending all this time to give and to share and to really give people your wisdom, you know, a small slice, an hour worth of your wisdom. So I really am grateful. Thank you, Carlos, for coming on today.
Thank you, Jake. Appreciate you, man. You're doing great things too, man. You're growing your business. You have a beautiful family. You are a fitness nerd like I am.
I'm crazy, dude.
If you don't take care of the vessel you've been given, and what does that say about you, right? Be committed to be in good shape. When you're in good shape, your confidence level blows up. And if you want to make money, your confidence level will help you make money at a big degree, right? If you feel crappy about yourself because you're overweight or low energy, or you depend on a cigarette to feel good, or you depend on junk food to feel good or stuff like that, that is just an endless cycle that continues to erode your confidence.
Well, what people don't probably understand is this lifestyle that we have chosen, though. Like, you know, people have in their mind this 9 to 5 mentality. When you're an entrepreneur, it's 5 to 9. And that takes so much work. Yeah, and 9's early, right?
24/7, bro.
yeah. It's true, dude. Like, I mean, you're constantly going, like, there's never an off moment. And so your physical health, like your energy level, is absolutely crucial for you to be successful, because you got to be on it constantly.
So much. And it's not only physical energy, guys. There's 2 types of energies. Well, 3, I should say. But physical energy is one thing. Mental energy is another muscle altogether, where you can be aware, focused, make right decisions, take challenges and not cave in, right? That mental fortitude and energy is just as crucial as you having energy in the morning and in the afternoon and everything else. And also your spiritual energy is along with that too. 100%. Being able to take challenges in a calm and collected way, not freak out, not panic, right? just right?
It's so big, dude. Like,
so big.
Like, dude, like when you start playing in the big levels, you can get yourself freaked out, and you do have to have that spiritual, like, everything's going to be okay. Like, I'm working in God's path or the universe or whatever you want to call it. Like,
yeah. Look, you were put here for a reason, and if you believe that you can do great things and your identity reflects it, you can do great things, and everything around you is going to reflect that. So, brother, so appreciative of you. Thank you for the opportunity to be with your audience. And anyone out there, guys, feel free to hit me up. I am Carlos 10X on every platform: Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, everywhere you can find me with that. So come to the clubhouse, Jake, I would love to have you on our clubhouse. This next Wednesday, we're going to have Gary Brecka on our clubhouse.
Nice.
You know who Gary Brecka is,
Yeah,
right?
10X Health.
CEO of 10X Health Systems. He's going to be talking about biohacking and, how to live a better, longer life. And I would love to have you come as well and say a few words, ask a few questions, because for all of you guys that care about health and fitness, one of the things that we want to know is how can I live a longer life where I'm strong, I'm healthy, my brain is working at its highest level, and you don't have to wait until you're in your 60s or 70s to worry about that stuff. Start early, right?
Dude, I mean, I've been in on your clubhouse since the beginning. I've had to miss the last 2 weeks, but I've been in there. And dude, I just talk about being the dumbest guy in the room. I just shut up. And I just listen. And I hear you guys all spit this stuff. And I'm like, just taking notes, like trying to figure out my life here. Because, I mean, it's great. So, guys, check out I am Carlos 10X. And Carlos is really great. Like I said, he drops a $1 million freaking check, and then this fucking nerd comes up and like, Carlos, I got to talk to you.
I've done that twice, right?
Two times now. God damn,
I did that once on the summit you were at, and I did it also on the virtual boot camp where I was in person.
Oh, my wife watched that. I wasn't able to watch that. I was away coaching, but wow, dude, yeah, you're a player, man. I'm aspiring. I'm trying to catch up to you, man. I'm competitive. But
let's go, bro.
Start.
Hey, we don't need to compete. We can dominate together. That's my new way of thinking. Is like, when I thought about how I can do things on my own strength, on my own bank account, on my own plans, I was limiting myself. When I now think, how can I do things and go find the people that I can partner with and the right players, a whole new world of unlimited opportunity and potential opened up to me. Because now I'm not limited to the funds in my bank account. Money's infinite.
Right.
Now I'm not limited to my time a day. Time is infinite when you think that way. I'm not limited to my own energy and effort, because now I have other people going with me. So I broke out of that mindset, and I have to thank Grant for that, because he said, you don't need time, you don't need money, you need people. Go find people. So people is all we need, my brother.
Dude, you are an inspiration, man. Thank you again so much, Carlos. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, my friend.
All right, guys. So, dude, find Carlos. You can see his Instagram right there. I am absolutely thrilled to have him on. Again, he's a Denver guy. He's like the American dream in terms of like a success story. Get out there, guys. Kill it. It's about your mindset. It's about what you're thinking. He nailed it. The 3 things. Make sure your physical system, your mental system, and your spiritual systems are all firing on the same cylinders and rowing in the same direction. Guys, I really appreciate you. And we'll catch you on the next #1 podcast. Thanks, guys.